Okay, everybody, welcome back to my channel. And today I have another video for you guys from Swagkage. This one talking about the character of Itachi Uchiha. Now, I think we did other dissecting videos on this channel, one focusing on the character of Sasuke and the other focusing on the character of Madara. So we're going to be focusing on Itachi, who is one of my absolute favorite characters in the entire series. So let's go ahead and not waste any more of your time. And as always, guys, link to the video, link to the channel in the description box. You know what to do.
Alright, let's get to talking about Itachi. Ever since I started doing character dissections a couple weeks ago, pretty much all of you guys have been asking me to do an Itachi character dissection. And I can totally understand why.
Yes.
He's one of the most beloved characters in the entire series. Pretty
amazing.
much everybody across the whole fandom likes this guy. But why is that? Why does everybody like Itachi so much? Well, obviously I can't speak for everybody else, but me personally, I really appreciate Itachi's complexity, and I can totally get on board with his moral code. A big issue many people have with many of Naruto's characters, specifically its antagonists, is that most of them have pretty questionable motivations, and the moral code that they operate under is very shaky or flimsy at best. This is at the very least how they seem at the surface level. It's very easy to interpret Obito, for example, as a deranged psychopath out to rule the world solely because he got friend-zoned by Rin. Many of the things that I personally believe about Obito.
There are a lot of people who do have that misunderstanding about Obito and think that, he did all of this because, you know, the girl he liked wouldn't like him back. But no, that's not the case. It's more than that. Like, he makes it pretty obvious throughout the war arc ever since he gets unmasked.
Aren't outright stated anywhere in the series, and the same can be said about many of Naruto's other villains, so it's generally up to the viewer to interpret their actions by themselves. The same can't be said about Itachi, because pretty much everything about his motivations is explained to the audience pretty well. Another thing that also helps...
Yeah, and I just want to comment on something you said right here real quick.
The same can't be said about Itachi, because pretty much everything about the viewer to interpret their actions by themselves stated anywhere in the series, and the same can be said about many of Naruto's other villains, so it's generally up to the viewer to interpret their actions by themselves. The same can't...
Yeah, that's true. And again, we've talked about this in a previous video where one of the things about Kishimoto is that he likes to let the readers sort of interpret for themselves what exactly is going on. And while that's, again, commendable for me, at least in my opinion, for a writer to trust the audience to be able to interpret what's going on, at the same time, I feel like it's one of the reasons why there's so much division when it comes to certain topics in the Naruto series. You have people constantly going into heated debates about what the author meant by either this statement or that statement, or what happens here or what happened there. And it's what kind of leads to a lot of confusion, unfortunately.
Can't be said about Itachi, because pretty much everything about his motivations is explained to the audience pretty well. Another thing that also...
His motivations are made very clear.
Helps set Itachi apart from most of Naruto's other villains is the fact that he's a very grounded character. Typically, Naruto's morally gray characters aren't written very subtly. I've found that you can generally categorize most of the antagonists in this series under one of two categories. Characters who are very clearly evil and have pretty grounded or selfish goals like Hidan, Kakazu, Orochimaru, Sasori, etc. Or characters who are morally gray but have world-changing goals in mind, aiming to do something ridiculous by completing these grandiose schemes and turning the world into a utopia. Madara, Obito, Nagato, and even Sasuke at the end of the series all fall under this second category, and I can see how to some people it's hard to look at these guys as human beings as opposed to shonen antagonists because of how ridiculous their motivations are. Then, on the other hand, you have Itachi, a morally gray character who has very grounded goals. Just keep his little brother safe and protect the Hidden Leaf Village. They're very simple goals, and it's very easy to get behind them. The things that Itachi wants to accomplish are a whole lot more relatable than the things that many of the other characters in the series want to accomplish, and it makes him feel incredibly human by comparison. It doesn't hurt that he's a total badass, and every time he's on screen he manages to steal the show, but there's a whole lot more to Itachi than everything I've mentioned so far. All of this said, he's still more...
I mean, the whole fight between him and Sasuke versus Kabuto, he pretty much stole the show. I mean, it's a lot of people, I'm willing to bet, probably really like that fight because Itachi was involved.
More complex than people give him credit for. Because, well, if he wasn't, there wouldn't be any need for this video. One thing I think I need to get out of the way immediately is the fact that Itachi was 14 years old when he wiped out the Uchiha clan, and 17 or 18 years old when he beat Kakashi in Part 1. This is very important to keep in mind, and it's a fact that I think a lot of people miss because it's not pushed very hard in the series at all.
Again, think about it. He was only 14 when he was asked to murder his entire clan. I mean, I can't even imagine what happens to someone when they're forced to do something like that and basically be put into into a situation like that because he was told, remember, if you don't do this, then the coup will happen. It will severely weaken the Leaf Village, and it'll give other nations a chance to attack, which would lead to just more death. And Itachi eventually realized, well, I mean, for the greater good, I kind of have to. Like, I got to think about this in the long term. And imagine having to force a 14-year-old kid to think like that, to have to think about things that normally you wouldn't think about until you're like in your mid to late 20s, early 30s. I mean, it's insane.
Itachi's a young kid, barely any older than I am. And even in Shippuden, by the time he died during his fight against Sasuke, Itachi was only 21. This adds an entirely new dimension to his character, as I'm sure many of you imagined Itachi was much older than he actually was. It's one thing to imagine an adult being forced to watch.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that's so tragic about his character, is that he was only 21 years old and he died. Like, he barely got to live his life.
Wipe out their entire family and being ostracized from their village for the sake of its own safety. But imagining a kid being tasked with the same thing is an entirely different issue. Not only does this make it pretty much impossible to hate Itachi, but it adds an extra layer of tragedy to his character that wouldn't have otherwise been there, especially considering his personality. Itachi was a very quiet and nice kid, one who harbored no ill will toward the outside world, and despite being one of the greatest prodigies in the history of the world, Itachi still somehow remained humble and didn't develop a sense of arrogance. The Itachi Hiden books go into greater detail about his personality, and show that despite the fact that he was an introvert, he genuinely cared about the well-being of everybody he knew. Both these novels and the main series also make it a point to inform the audience that Itachi is a pacifist and doesn't like to fight, despite how talented he is at it. There are many other facets to Itachi's personality explored in the series, but I think you get the idea. The series does a pretty decent job describing who Itachi is anyway, so I doubt I need to go into much further detail. Anyway, not only do all of these factors make Itachi an admirable kid in his own right, completely disregarding the Uchiha clan massacre, it also makes the Uchiha clan massacre a much more interesting event. See, there are a lot of things worth taking into consideration here. Of course, there are all of the factors that make up Itachi's personality that I've just mentioned, but there's also the fact that he was only 14 when he was asked to wipe out his clan, and there's the additional fact that he lived to see some of the Third Shinobi World War. All of these things might not sound like a whole lot on their own, but let me explain how they all lend to making this a much more complex problem for Itachi. First of all, Itachi's introverted nature is very important to keep in mind here, since introverts are obviously more disconnected than most people are from other people. I also doubt I need to tell you how smart Itachi was, even as a kid. Combine Itachi's introversion with a sharp analytical mind, and you get a kid who's got a very objective outlook on things. The Itachi Hiden novels explain that Itachi liked to watch people from a distance instead of interacting with them directly, and this gave him a much more objective view of people than you would expect him to have. The fact that Itachi studied people before developing relationships with them kept him at least partially from developing any subconscious biases. This made him much more individualistic than many of the other members of his clan. Many of his kin developed a strong blind loyalty for the Uchiha clan, but it was a loyalty that Itachi did not share. He still cared about his family, of course, but he didn't place their needs above the needs of everybody else. So when his clan ran the risk of starting a war by planning a coup against the Hidden Leaf Village, it makes total sense why Itachi would oppose his father here. This is especially true when you consider, again, Itachi saw some of the Third Shinobi World War and knew how devastating war could be. Even if it was for the sake of his clan, I don't think Itachi was willing to live through another one.
See, that's the thing that, again, I think a lot of people sort of miss, is that one of the driving factors for why Itachi is the way he is because he was at such a young age when he was forced to experience just how horrible, war actually is. And from that perspective, like, you can kind of understand why he developed the mentality that he did in his in the later parts of his life before the Uchiha clan massacre, and even a little bit after that.
Put Itachi in what must have been the worst position ever. As a trusted member of the Anbu Black Ops, he had the ability to report the Uchiha's plan to the Leaf's higher-ups, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to do that because of what it might mean for his family. Of course, as you all know, he did eventually make the decision to tell Danzo, Hiruzen, and everybody else about the Uchiha's plan, but only because he had no idea how to solve the problem himself. Initially, the solution was going to be to have Shisui cast Koto Uematsu Kami on Itachi's father to keep the coup from happening in the first place, but Danzo ruined that when he killed Shisui and took one of his eyes.
God, fuck Danzo, dude. Fuck that stupid idiot.
This made things even more complicated for Itachi, as I'm sure Itachi really wanted
I know the redundancy in that statement. You don't need to point it out.
to convict Danzo of murder because he knew of his involvement in Shisui's death, but all that would do is raise tensions between the Uchiha and the Hidden Leaf Village, and it would make war almost a nigh certainty. Still, the fact that Itachi was able to swallow how he personally felt about Danzo, despite his involvement in his best friend's murder, and go through with the mission that he was later given by Hiruzen and Danzo, speaks volumes about Itachi's integrity. I'm sure part of it had to do with the fact that Itachi was still a quiet and nervous kid and didn't want to go through with challenging such a powerful figure. But still, in his position, the last thing I would want to do is have to listen to Danzo, especially if he told me I had to kill my entire clan.
I don't
However,
think...
Itachi put the safety of Sasuke and the Hidden Leaf Village first, and
I don't think anyone would want to listen to Danzo. I mean, it's just, seriously, like, how can anyone take that guy seriously? He's just... I mean, yeah, I know someone might make the argument, well, he's also thinking about the village, he's just doing it in his own way, and I get that, I do, but it's just, like, for some reason, I never got that from the guy. I always got the feeling that there was something else to him, that it wasn't just about protecting the village, that he had some personal motive driving him to do what he did. You know, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one, let me know, but one thing that I do want to ask you guys, let me know in the comments, if you were in Itachi's situation, what would you have done? Because that's something that's really interesting about the Naruto series, is that you can ask someone, okay, say you were in this character's position, would you have done things differently, or would you have realistically done the same thing? You know, like, for example, let's say you were in Nagato's position, having gone through everything Nagato did. Like, would you still go down the same road, or would you find another way? And in this case, with Itachi, if you were in that position, would you have done the same, or would you have done something else? Let me know in the comments.
Decided to go through with the mission anyway. Many people question why it was necessary for Itachi to kill every single member of the Uchiha clan, but the general public didn't know about the coup that Fugaku was planning, so as far as they were aware, the Hidden Leaf and the Uchiha were on great terms. If the Hidden Leaf were to organize an attack on the Uchiha clan, it would do two things. One, it would make them look really bad for attacking the clan pretty much unprovoked, and two, if they weren't able to kill all of the Uchiha in one fell swoop, it would instantly ignite a war. Having Itachi murder all of the Uchiha while they were sleeping, and having him do so under the guise of a psychotic murderer solved both of these issues, and it would also keep Sasuke from developing any ill will towards the Hidden Leaf Village. He was willing to have his life completely destroyed if it meant protecting his village and his younger brother, and was even willing to go so far as to join the Akatsuki to continue working for the Leaf as a spy. Even while serving under the Akatsuki, Itachi's pacifism and humility still remained intact, as shown when he urged Kisame not to start a fight with too many people in the Leaf, not for his own benefit, but to keep from causing too much collateral damage, and furthermore by the fact that he rarely ever boasted, and if he ever did, it was to keep up the persona of a psychopath that he built for himself. Speaking of this persona, Itachi's love for Sasuke was so strong that one of his primary goals was to make this persona as dastardly as possible in order to get people to hate Itachi and hail Sasuke as a hero whenever he killed him. Itachi wanted nothing but the best for Sasuke, and felt incredibly guilty when he found out that Sasuke had learned the truth about him.
Yeah, technically he didn't kill him. Itachi died because he fell to his illness.
He even went so far as to admit to Sasuke that he made a mistake by acting the way he had, and condemned himself for a decision that he had made 7 years earlier. I mean, if this doesn't show you how humble the guy is, I don't know what will. I think at this point I'm just repeating myself in different ways, so I should probably get to the conclusion of this video, which is that Itachi's a very selfless and humble guy. I would give some supporting reasons here to make the ending a little less awkward, but I've kind of already stated everything in this video so far. I know this was a little bit shorter than the other character dissections that I've done, but Itachi doesn't have a whole lot of significance in the series outside of his interactions with Sasuke and his participation in the Uchiha clan massacre. So explaining his relationship with them is the best way to break his character down, I find anyway. Anyhow, since this series has been so successful, I'll let you guys decide which character I tackle in the next dissection video. On the Obito video, I left a comment with the choices Madara, Nagato, and Itachi, and since Itachi won that poll, now it's down to Madara and Nagato. Leave your votes in the comments below, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and maybe leave a like. Also, if you really love me, maybe consider checking the description for the link to my Patreon. I hate begging for money, but I mean, I do need food. And also, if you pledge to the Patreon, any more than $1 at all, you get access to the patron-only Discord server. Once more people make their way in there, I'll start hosting patron Discord calls, so you guys will have that to look forward to. Anyway, yeah, I'm dragging the outro up for too long. You don't have to pledge to the Patreon, but, you know, it's there. Anyhow, thank you guys for watching the video all the way to the end. Hope to see you in my next video, and I'll talk to you later. Swagkage out. Bye.
And I think that's the end of the, yeah, there it is. So that's the end of the video. And again, it's really interesting. You know, the character of Itachi, there's a reason why so many people love him, because he's, again, like he's such a complex character. And again, when you think about a lot of the things that the guy went through, a lot of the things that, or a lot of the situations that he was forced into, you do wonder how the hell he even had the strength to keep moving forward. But it's like he said, you know, he developed like an objective view of things from such a young age because of what he went through. And because of that, I guess you could say it did kind of make it easier to make that decision, because not saying that the decision to do what he did was easy for him. No, I think it made it a little bit easier because he knew that, you know, because he knew how horrible war actually is. He doesn't want other people to go through that. You know, he doesn't want people to have to know what it's like to live in a time of war where you're watching people that you care about just die out of nowhere sometimes. Just one day they're here, the next day they're not. You know, he didn't want other people to be put through that. And if it meant having to murder his clan and more importantly protect Sasuke, then he was willing to make that sacrifice. But like I said, I asked you guys before, if you were in his position, what would you have done? Would you have done the same thing, or would you have tried to find some other way? With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section down below. And while you're here, consider leaving a like, share this video, and also guys, please hit the subscribe button. My goal is to hit 1,000 subs before the end of the year. I don't know what the sub count is going to be by the time you see this video, but as of the recording of this video, we are a little over the 800 subscriber mark. Hopefully by the time you see this, we'll be over 900, and if we are, consider hitting the subscribe button to help me hit 1,000. Remember, before the end of the year. With that being said, guys, I appreciate every single bit of support you've shown me. This year in particular has been amazing for my channel. It's seen a lot of growth, and I never thought that I'd be this close to hitting 1,000. And I owe it all to you guys, the support you've shown me for a long time. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you for the next reaction. Bye for now.